Well, good afternoon and welcome to Crowd Church. My name's Matt, and beside me is the beautiful Anna. Anna, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Matt. Yeah, I'm well.
Yeah, good. Good. Welcome to Crowd Church. We are an online church for those that might not see the point of church, for those who are looking for answers to live a meaningful life, and basically for everyone who just wants to sort of do Remembrance Sunday today. So you're welcome here, wherever you are on your faith journey. It's good to see you. It's good that you're here. So brilliant. Anna, what is coming up today? Do you know? Have I told you?
Yes, you have told me.
Have you
So,
remembered?
have I remembered? That's another question, isn't it? So today we've got a shorter talk than normal, and we're going to spend a bit of time observing and remembering for Remembrance Sunday. It's going to have a bit of time of reflection as well as usual talk. And then we've also got some worship coming up later and Conversation Street. And does that cover it, Matt?
Yeah, good. That'll work. Yeah, that'll work.
Good.
Well done. And because today is Remembrance Sunday, we are going to add a few little things in as well. And so, yes, a warm welcome to you. That is exactly what's coming up on the screen. I'm just going to go back to actually my other. Where's my button? There it is. Why has that not come up? Hang on. There we go. Let's try that. There you go. I forgot to mention, if you want to reach us and connect with us, you can find us on the web at crowd.church, www.crowd.church. You can also reach us via the WhatsApp number, which is also on your screen, which I know many of you have done in the last few weeks. We've had all kinds of conversations. So if I've been talking to you on WhatsApp, it's great to see you. Great that you're here. Really, really pleased. And I've enjoyed our conversations, that's for sure. So yeah, you can reach out to us on that number. And one of the things people do connect with us about is prayer. So a lot of people call in and say, listen, can you pray for such and such? And most of them don't even go to church. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We just like to pray. So just let us know what's going on and we would love to connect with you. I think that's fair enough, isn't it, Anna? I think that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to pray for you. If there's anything you want prayer for, just let us know.
Have a go, see what happens. So we are live streaming from Liverpool. Well, you're in Liverpool as well, actually. I was going to say we're both in Liverpool
Yep.
as we are live streaming this. So wherever you are in the world, a big warm welcome to you. It is now dark outside. I mean dark. And so it's night now, isn't it? Does the clock going back thing mess you up, Anna, or are you okay with it?
Yeah, I hate it. I hate that feeling of like getting up and it still feels like the middle of the night. And then
Hmm.
I pick my little boy up from school at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock and it's getting dark. And
Yeah.
it just doesn't make me want to do stuff. Like I just want to hibernate and watch TV and stay indoors after it goes dark.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, it doesn't bring the best out in me in terms of socialness and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
What
it's a
about
funny one, isn't
you?
it? Oh, I'm not a fan. I have to say, I'm not a fan. I just want the
No.
clocks just to start. And to be fair, it's not the hour going back and forth. It's just the annoyance of having to change the clocks that aren't smart clocks. Like the one on the oven, which you still have to manually change.
Oh yeah, so
It's
annoying. Why can't everything be like an iPhone, hey, and just like wake
just
you up
do
at the
it.
right time? Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. If only
Although
everything was as
I have to say today was a beautiful day though, because
it
the
was.
thing I hate about this time of year is it's so dark, isn't it?
Hmm.
But like today was actually a really beautiful, bright day, so can't
It was.
grumble too much.
The sun was shining and it was warm. It
At
was
least
lovely
here
and
in
warm.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
Let us know what it's like where you are.
Yeah, that one day of the year where it was warm in Liverpool.
Exactly.
It
No
was
grey sky,
today.
it was blue.
Oh,
Amazing.
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So today is Remembrance Sunday, where we remember those who have fought, who have lost their lives and who have fallen over the years, whether in the armed services. For a lot of people, it's a time to remember loved ones who have passed. And we're going to get into your questions, thoughts, and comments in Conversation Street in just a little bit. But we are going to have a talk first. We have been doing a series. If this is your first time with us, welcome. But we have been doing a series called What Does the Bible Say About? And we've been asking questions like, what does the Bible say about science? What does the Bible say about anxiety? All these kind of cool questions, and just digging in, really interesting questions that have relevance for us today. And is there anything that the Bible tells us about it? Well, that theme is going to be carrying on today. We're going to get into what does the Bible say about Remembrance Sunday? It's a really interesting question. Is there anything in the Bible? Well, we're going to get into that. We're going to do this talk now, and then Anna and I will be back in just a little while. So here we go with today's talk. What does the Bible say about Remembrance Sunday? Or perhaps a bigger question is to say, what does the Bible say about days like today? You know, the days where we do remember events and people, such as those that have fallen or those that have sacrificed, those that have given their lives. We could take it even further, I guess, and ask, what does the Bible say about war? Is it just? Is it righteous? And why does God not intervene and stop war if he's a God of peace? There are so many questions, a rabbit trail of questions that we could easily end up on. But for today, regardless of what I personally think about war itself, I can't argue with the fact that countless men and women throughout history, including my own family members, have paid incredibly high prices so that I can enjoy the freedoms that I currently have. My great-great-grandfather, for example. Dennis, who is Sharon's grandfather, was evacuated at Dunkirk and had an incredible story about that. So should we intentionally remember such things? Well, it kind of, to me, feels right to do so. But is there more than just this feeling? What does the Bible say about it? And there's this really interesting story, actually, in Jesus' ministry that I just want to touch on. It's in one of the Gospels with a lady called Mary Magdalene. Now, Mary had a sister called Martha, and she had a brother called Lazarus. And they were all good friends with Jesus and the disciples. And one day, they're having a meal at Lazarus's house in honor of Jesus, which seems like a pretty good reason to have a meal to me, right? And during that meal, something rather interesting happens. Mary breaks open an expensive bottle of perfume and she anoints Jesus's feet with it. Now, this may seem a little bit odd, given that we don't do this that much here, even in Liverpool, right? Or in the West. We just don't. You don't go to somebody's house to eat, and then when the host comes, you rub perfume on their feet with your hair. It would be a little bit unusual, that's for sure. Especially if that perfume was worth around 25 grand. But that's what Mary did with Jesus. So it's an unusual story. And so without getting into all the finer points of it, because it is quite a remarkable story, there is one point that I do want to draw out. And it's to do with what Jesus said to Mary and her family and all the disciples who were there when she'd done this. Okay, so she'd done this act. And here's what Jesus said to her. Assuredly, I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her. What this woman, Mary, did will be told as a memorial to her. In other words, it will be remembered. It will be remembered throughout the whole world. This is what Jesus, the Son of God himself, decreed, that we should remember the act of this brave but humble, ordinary woman from Bethany. So it seems that there are times that there are acts done by ordinary people that we should remember. we should make time for them like we do today. And it's not just Mary's anointing of Jesus' feet we should remember. There's a really interesting verse in John's Gospel that is often quoted at times like this. And it's Jesus who's talking, and he says this: "There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends." There is no greater love. That's really interesting, isn't it? Those that give their lives for others is an act of love. And the greatest act of love is to lay down your life for somebody. That's quite an interesting statement, I think, that Jesus makes. You know, we might call it heroic when you lay down your life. We maybe call it a sacrifice like we do today. But ultimately, according to Jesus, it's an act of love. How do you know you love someone? You'd give your life for them. If you're a parent, you will know that feeling well, especially when your kids are young and have so much of life to live. But what may surprise you about this verse is the context of it. So if we look at the context of what Jesus is actually talking about here, is he talking about the brave men and women that give up their lives? Because that's how we've often interpreted it. But what Jesus is actually talking about is himself. He's talking about the death. He's talking about his own death. And Christians celebrate this, right? Which at first glance, well, that just may seem a little bit odd. But it's all about his sacrifice. And there's a day coming where we will breathe our last breath on this planet. Sorry to report it, but it is a truth. You can't escape it, right? Even if we don't think about it, you still can't escape it. I don't know when that will be. You don't know when your last day will be. And sure, we can hypothesize all day long about it. We can look after our health. We can try and extend our lives. And these are all good things. But really, we just don't know. Sometimes we get to choose, right? We get to choose how we live. And sometimes we get to choose how we die. And that is what Jesus is talking about. According to the Bible, there is more than one type of death we face. Yes, we die physically, but the Bible talks a lot about spiritual death too. And that spiritual death is what happens when we're cut off from God. Okay, so Jesus in a few chapters talks about it like this. He says, imagine a branch on a tree, and that branch is cut off from the tree. Okay, there is still some life in that branch. Leaves can still grow on it, but it is ultimately cut off from the source of life, and so it will eventually die. There are two deaths for this branch: the moment it's cut off from the tree and the day it withers and dies. And humanity is a lot like that. There are two deaths that we have to face. There is a spiritual death, which is a separation from the tree of life, which is God himself, Jesus, our source of life. But then there's also the physical death that we face. So when Jesus talks about laying down his life, he dies both physically and spiritually. And here's the thing about this verse, right? Jesus is talking about laying down his life as a supreme act of love. And this is something that he does for his friends. Okay, this is what he says. You are my friends if you do what I command. That's quite an astounding statement, right? What happened through the death of Christ was he died so that I wouldn't have to, so that you wouldn't have to, right? Not physically, but spiritually. He, in effect, lifts up the branch and grafts it back into the tree of life. We reconnect with the source of life, and in so doing, Jesus calls us friends. And that's why Christians celebrate it. And although it may seem odd, it is a remarkable thing that is just life-changing. The consequence of Jesus dying was that I could find life again. And the consequence of all those men and women who gave themselves in times of conflict is that I get to live in relative freedom and peace. There is a consequence to their love. to the gift of their life. And that's amazing, both from the Christian narrative about Christ, but also from the people that fought for us. The Bible has a lot to say about remembering this kind of act. If I'm honest, surprisingly so, how much it does have to say. In Proverbs, it says that the memory of the righteous is blessed. The memory of those that gave their lives is blessed. They live those that live righteously, their memory is blessed. And it's good to remember that. It's really good to remember that. In Deuteronomy, it says, remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you. Your elders, and they will tell you. Remember the days of old. Consider them. Consider and think about what it was like and what it is like now. One of your roles as you get older, like me, it catches up with the best of us, is to make sure that we tell the generations before what it was actually like. The good and the bad, the lessons that we have learned, the good things that we've discovered, and the dark days that we experienced. Solomon said this, if a man lives many years and rejoices in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness. And we do this because the lessons from history are powerful. So yes, Remembrance Day is a good thing. And in fact, if you are a Christian, you'll find this idea of remembrance all over Scripture. It's not like you've forgotten things. It's not like you've forgotten where your keys are, for example, and you're trying to desperately remember. No. Remembrance is a deliberate act. It is something that you intentionally do. This is what's supposed to happen when you see a rainbow, for example. The Bible tells us the rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I will look on it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. You see the rainbow and you remember the covenant that you have with God. But it's not just when you see the rainbow, but this act of remembrance actually happens every week. The Bible tells us to remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. We're to remember that, to remind ourselves about the Sabbath. To actually take a day of rest every week, to unplug, to unwind. And we remember it, which means we have to do it, right? Don't just think about it, we've got to get involved with it. So remembrance is a good thing. And I think it's a godly thing too. We should remember the key events of life. That's why I love to celebrate birthdays and my wedding anniversary, for example. It's why I love to get together with old friends and tell some of the stories from when we were younger. We feel something when we do that. And I think that's a really godly thing. Now, in this life, we may be called to lay down our life for others, like millions over the years have done. Churchill said, never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. It's true, right? There are so many acts of heroism committed by people I have never met and never known. And today I remember them and I'm grateful. But also in this life, it's probably likely that you won't have to lay down your life if you live in places like I live. But as we discovered with Mary pouring perfume over Jesus' feet, there are opportunities for us to do something that is memorable, that does make a difference, and that will be remembered. And it isn't just me that sort of thinks like this too. The Apostle Paul, St. Paul, he wrote the following: I thank my God upon every remembrance of you. Paul would often remember those important to him, and in so doing, he would pray and thank God for them. So I think that's what we should do. I think we should follow that pattern and do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a timer up on the screen and observe from the live stream here a 2 minutes silence. And as we do, Why don't you remember and thank God for those Marys in our lives that have done things that the rest of the world doesn't see, but's had a big impact on us. Let's remember and thank God as for our loved ones that we have lost along the way. Let's remember and thank God for the service of those known and unknown who have fought for us so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we now have. And as Christians, let's also remember and thank God for the sacrifice of Christ, the Son of God, who laid down his life for us, and in so doing, called us friends.
Wow. So I hope you found that moving. I know I certainly did. I think it's just an amazing thing to be able to pause and remember sometimes. So yeah, I just think that's an amazing thing. So we're going to move on now. and play a song as part of our worship together. It's a hymn that we're going to play today called When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. It's quite an old hymn, and some of the lyrics are a little bit sort of Old English, but it really links to what Matt has just been talking about in terms of sacrifice and just the centrality of the cross and the importance of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. Sometimes it feels like a strange thing to celebrate as Christians, this idea that, a cross, which is really a horrible torture mechanism, that we celebrate that. But it's what it represents, and that's what this song is all about, and it's really beautifully written. So just listen to the lyrics as it comes up now, and perhaps reflect on what it means and on that sacrifice that Jesus made as well today. And then after that, we're going to move on to Conversation Street. So do also be thinking about what we've been talking about today. Remember that you can post all of your comments in the box. So be posting any questions or comments you've got, and we'll try and pick them up afterwards. Okay.
When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss and pour contempt on all my pride. Forbid it, Lord, that I should boast, save in the death of Christ my God. All the vain things that charm me most, I sacrifice them to His blood. See from His head, His hands, His feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did as such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? I thank you for the cross, I thank you for the cross, I thank you for the cross, my Lord. I thank you for the cross, I thank you for the cross, I thank you for the cross, my Lord. were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small, of so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my own. I thank you for the cross, I thank you for the cross, I thank you for the cross, my Lord. I thank you for the cross, I thank you for the cross, I thank you for the cross, my Lord. I love you for the cross, I love you for the cross, I love you for the cross, my Lord. I love you for the cross, I love you for the cross, I love you for the cross, my Lord.
Well, welcome back after that stunningly beautiful song by John Frank. Well, he didn't write it, but he did it. He performed it, but he didn't write it. It's a beautiful song. Isaac Watts actually wrote it a long old time ago, and it is simply stunning. One of my favourite songs ever. So just putting that out there. Listen to that again. If you do like the worship that we do here at Crowd, it is worth saying that on the YouTube channel we have a worship playlist which you can download, you can sing along with, you can connect with some of the songs that you hear on Crowd Livestream. You can get them on YouTube as well. And in fact, Anna, I don't know if you know this, but one of the songs that we've put up on YouTube went a little bit viral recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was the song "O Come All Ye Faithful." Believe it or not, from last year, John did this stunning version of "O Come All Ye Faithful." We will be playing it again in the Christmas services that are coming up. And it's gone a little bit viral at the moment. So
even though it's not really Christmas yet,
it started going viral in June. In June. And a lovely lady actually wrote in the comments on there, she says, you know what, I know it's not Christmas, but this is such a beautiful song and you can do Christmas songs all year round. And so I was like, okay, yeah, fair play to you. That's
and also
awesome.
Christmas wasn't that great last year, was it? It was like kind of blinking you missed it. So why not celebrate it in June?
Exactly. Exactly. In the UK, we were allowed out for a day on Christmas. So hopefully this year will be a little bit better. But no, it is a stunningly beautiful song. And that song and the When I Survey song and all the songs that we do are available in the YouTube playlist. You are more than welcome to go and get access to them. They are on there. Please do enjoy them. Matt Cruz put here in the comments, I heard Christmas music in the co-op today, so wrong. Now I appreciate this is maybe not the topic of what we're going to talk about, but Christmas music in November, yes or no?
I think yes. I think once you've got past like bonfire night and Halloween, then it's acceptable, but I don't like it before that. Okay, that's where I draw the line.
It's controversial. In our house, you're not allowed to play Christmas music on any of the playlists until December 1st.
Oh no! So when do you put your Christmas tree up then? You're going to be one of these people that's like really late.
No. First weekend of December, we have our traditions. We'll go and get our tree. Yeah. So we go get the tree and we'll decorate the house. First weekend of December is always the same in our house. But no Christmas music before the 1st of December. If I can't eat chocolate in my advent calendar, we cannot play Christmas carols in the house. This is the way it is. So slightly controversial, maybe. Yeah, Sharon's put here, I prefer Christmas music from December. This is now becoming a bit of a hot topic. Was not
Yeah,
expecting.
post your comments, everyone.
Yeah. Christmas
Yes
music
or
in
no?
December, in November. Yes or no? Write your answers in the comments below. I'm really curious to see what you put.
I just feel like life is joyless, like there's a lot of joylessness in life at the moment. Bring it on. Christmas can't come early enough, can it?
Bring it on. I like that attitude. Let's get it. Let's bring it on. You know what? Yesterday, Zoe and I, my daughter and I, we went down into town, and we got our first Christmas presents yesterday. So what tends to happen is we'll go and we'll buy stuff that people can then give us for Christmas, because apparently we're notoriously difficult to buy for. My wife tells me, and so I bought Christmas pajamas. Yes, I did. So I've got some Christmas pajamas coming.
But are you wearing them yet?
No, it's not Christmas. I can't open them until Christmas.
1st of December, eh?
Yeah. Sharon, I prefer Christmas from December, although sometimes certain lodges sneak Christmas music in earlier. That's true. The lodges, they do break the rules.
Go lodges.
That's another conversation we could have at some point about lodges. Maybe we should get into... Anyway. So,
what does the Bible say about lodges?
That's such a good question. Yes or no? That's a good question. Okay. So, Remembrance Day. Well, you wrote in the comments, Anna, I noticed actually that you put in there that hadn't really thought about this topic much before, but the Bible has a lot to say about remembrance. What made you write that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've thought about Remembrance Sunday every year when it comes up, but I mean, I hadn't really thought about it in context of what the Bible has to say about it and the importance of remembering. I hadn't really thought about it from that angle. So that was really interesting to actually think that the Bible says a lot about thinking back on our history and remembering things that have happened in the past. And yeah, it wasn't something that I'd considered before. And maybe that's partly because, we don't live in war times, do we? Like, at least not in our Western kind of British culture. I know wars happen today still, but we're not like living in one, are we?
Yeah.
So I think perhaps it's just because it's not our everyday reality. It's not a subject we wrestle with quite so much. But obviously it's really important to remember, but like I hadn't really thought about it from that angle. That was all.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And one of the things that when you read through scriptures and you see some of the stuff in there, there seems to be a lot of feasts. God commands that you remember and you eat. It seems that whenever God tells you to do something, there's usually food involved, which is a winner where I'm concerned. But yeah, there's like, you're going to have a feast and you remember this and you're going to remember that. And I'm aware that not next weekend, I think it's the weekend after, it's Thanksgiving in the States, isn't it? There's the last weekend of November. Where again, you have food and you're thankful for things. And I think things like that are just brilliant. And they're very fascinating, and I think God's for it. And I think it's good to remember. We were talking, because we can talk to each other whilst other stuff is happening, just to make sure, we're both on point. And we were just having a little chat there about your grandfather. Your grandfather was in the RAF during the Second World War, is that right?
He was, yeah. My mum's father, he helped build aeroplanes. So he helped build some of those fighter planes during the Second World War. That was his job. And also my father-in-law, Morris, he's no longer with us, but he was in the Navy during the Second World War and was stationed on ships for 5 years. He was actually a medical personnel. Like he wasn't like military, but obviously he served in terms of looking after those military officers that were injured. So yeah, I think he saw some fairly horrific things actually. But I mean, it's incredible, isn't it, how so many of us actually know people in our own families and who've all been involved in different ways. It's one of the things that I always think when I think about our little boy Ben. It's like that next generation won't have a direct connection anymore, it's another generation removed, isn't it? And I think that's why I think remembering is so important. Like it's the more the generations move on, the further in history it is and the less the personal connection. Feel like you can talk to people our age and there's still a direct connection with family members, but that won't continue much longer. Like there's not, I remember like even in school, like going and talking to people, older people in my primary school about what their experiences were of wartime. And like kids today won't be, or in the future won't be able to do that and hear firsthand accounts, because just as the generations move on, there's less and less of those people still around, isn't there? And
There is.
neither of those family members are still around for us. So it's case in point.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I can remember having a conversation with my grandparents, and and Sharon's grandparents as well, and these guys were around in the war and they had amazing stories. Sharon's grandfather talking about Dunkirk. I mean, just miracle stuff that was going on there. My great grandfather lost his life in World War One, and I mean, obviously, I didn't know him, but you are connected. Like you say, I feel like we're the last generation that had a connection to the generations that did fight in the Great Wars. And the thing that I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed, is the people that wear, so I've got my poppy on, you've got your poppy on, we put a little poppy in the corner of the screen that side. The younger generations tend not to do it. And so people wear, I appreciate I'm stereotyping a little bit here, but typically if people aren't wearing poppies, they tend to be younger. And so I was really challenged by that scripture where it says, you parents and you elders, you've got to tell the generations below what happened, and just to pass that down. So I heard the stories from my grandparents, and I have to tell my kids those stories so they remember, because it's not, they are sort of removed from it in some respects, but they're not that far. And so, we have to learn those lessons, don't we? So I don't know, do you think it's a bit sad that people... Is it sad that people aren't wearing poppies as much in the younger generations? I don't know. I just feel like there is a disconnect, and I feel that that's a bit sad, maybe.
Yeah, I think it is. I understand, like, not everybody likes the idea of war. I mean, none of us like the idea of war, do we? But I think that's to oversimplify what the poppy is. It's not a celebration of war. It's a celebration of the sacrifice for our freedom. And I think, that is a shame that people, not everyone respects that as much today. And I suppose you still get it in school, don't you, in history lessons, and so there is still that passing on, but I think there's just maybe less of a direct personal connection. Like my little boy last week in primary school, they were doing a poppy appeal at school, so he came home with a poppy.
Okay.
So I think they still do it, but I think there's definitely less of a connection, I would say. Tell us what you think, other people. I don't know. Are we just generalising here?
Yeah, maybe we are. I don't know.
We're too old to know what young people think anymore.
You speak for yourself, love. Too old to think what other people... Sharon's put here, I'm just going through some of the comments here. Matt said, buy me a pizza and a Coke for Christmas, Tar. Okay, so he's getting his Christmas wishes in early. Sharon said, I love it that we were commanded to have celebrations and feasts. Oh, go on then, God, if you insist. I like that. Matt's like, is it? What does the Bible say about Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks then? That's a very good question.
Do you know what? Going back to the Thanksgiving thing, like, I'm it's one of the few things that really makes me jealous of the Americans, like one time of year that sorry any American viewers right now, but it's one time of the year where I really wish I was American. Like I have, like, my sister lives in America, and so I have some American family, and honestly it's the thing that I'm really jealous of about their culture. Like every year I'm like, I just want to do it here. I might just do it anyway this year. It's just do it. I just think it's such a lovely idea. Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I'm always. I lived in the States for a few years, and I love Thanksgiving. It's such a great time, and so and I'd much rather do Thanksgiving than sort of get all caught up and wrapped up in Black Friday. Do you know what I mean? It seems to have kind of overtaken that, and I think. Matt Cox is in the car. Hey Matt, how you doing? My older cousin was a Royal Marine in the 45 Commando unit and was killed in action in the Falklands War. And gosh, I remember the Falklands War. I'm thinking of him oddly. I feel I wrote this before her. Don't know what that means. Okay, so the Falklands War was a big deal. And I do remember that. And sorry about
That
your
is in our
cousin, Matt. Yeah.
lifetime. And also, like, there's some other big wars in our lifetime, actually. It's a really good point, like the Gulf War, that was when I was, when I was growing up, that was a really big thing. Like, and obviously more recently there's been Afghanistan. So yeah, there are some big wars where I have friends who've lost people in the Afghanistan war over, the last 20 years. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
it's
it's yeah, I'm with you. I've had family fighting the Afghan war and the Iraq war, so it's a tricky one, isn't it? And one of the questions that comes through all the time, and today is no exception, is, if God is a God of peace, why doesn't he just intervene and stop war? And I think that's a really fascinating question. Why does God not just come down and go, right, that's it, guys, there's just no more war? Because again, it's not just England we're talking about, literally all over the world. We see war, and there is some horrendous stuff going on around the world. And there are some amazing aid agencies who are getting involved with humanitarian aid around the world. But you kind of think, why? Why do we still live in a world where power-hungry men, usually, with trigger-happy fingers, are doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing, and it's causing the death of innocent people all over the world, and it's horrific. So why does God not intervene? What do you think, Anne? Have you got any thoughts on this? Sorry to throw you in at the deep end. I thought I'd ask you before you asked me.
Give me an easy one, Matt. It's a really hard question, isn't it? I mean, it's one of the first questions I'll be asking God when I get up to heaven, or wherever heaven is. I don't think there's an easy answer to that. I think part of it is about free will. Like, God gives us choice. He gives us choice to follow him and do what's right or not. And unfortunately, as you say, lots of leaders in our world in particular choose to do what's not right or what's selfish or power grabbing. Why doesn't God intervene? I think if you intervene, then if you intervene on one thing, you intervene on everything, don't you? It's like, where do you draw the line? But if you are God, I suppose that's one philosophical way of looking at it. But equally, from a human pain and suffering perspective, why doesn't he intervene? I don't know. I'm not God. I'm not sure it's something we could ever fully answer as human beings or fully understand, because all we feel is our pain and our loss and our grief. But what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's quite a complex question to answer, and I think there are answers which we have historically given. Jesus, when he talked about his death, burial, and resurrection, actually said there are going to be wars. He actually predicted there were going to, this sort of acceleration of wars. And it comes down to, in effect, the evilness of man. I don't know if I would attribute it to God not intervening rather than, it's more like a steward. We talked on the, what does God say about the environment? What does the Bible say about the environment last week? Ellie did a great job talking about stewardship and how we've been, given stewardship of the planet.
She was brilliant.
Which was great. And if you've not heard it, do check it out. And in the same way we're stewarding the planet, we're supposed to steward each other and supposed to steward people. And I think the innate selfishness of man, you mix that together with a bit of power and crazy things happen. And I think it's a difficult question to answer, but I think the easy thing to do, in some respects, and I mean this with all due respect, the cop out is to go, it's God's fault because he's not done anything. The difficult thing to do is to go, actually, I can be quite selfish. I might not have killed people, but I can demonstrate selfishness. And if that's in me, then it can be in other people. And evil is prevalent and real in the world. And so I can't just lay this at God's feet. I have to take some responsibility here and search out some answers. Matt Cox has put, because we moved from instant to awareness of self, perhaps ultimately humans are good. God perhaps doesn't get involved because he gave us free will, ? That's a good observation, Matt. Like Anna said, like you said, I think there's an element of free will. One thing I do know is that God hasn't intervened yet. I think is probably a fair statement to make, because there's coming a point, most Christians believe, me included, where God just goes, you know what, guys, enough's enough. That's it. And, Christ is coming back, and there's a new heaven, there's a new earth, and there's peace. There's no more tears, there's no more pain, there's no more suffering. There's apparently streets made of gold, which I'm going to slide down in my socks, I keep telling people, because, I'm looking for it. So I would almost say God hasn't intervened yet, but there's coming a day when he will. And I, for one, am looking forward to that day. Do you know what I mean? I think it's quite an interesting thing. Sharon's put here, just wondering how are humans actually good? Are humans ultimately good? That's a really good question. Do we think human beings are ultimately good? And I would question maybe not. Left to their own devices, you've seen kind of what happens. I think there is goodness in people. I do think there is goodness in people, but I also think every human needs a saviour. Hence the reason we do church, right? Just putting that out there. So, Remembrance Sunday, and doing that in church. So, Anna, for you, you're remembering your grandfather, your father-in-law. Do you use Remembrance Sunday as a time to remember anyone else, like maybe someone that wasn't affected by war, but is it just a time to remember lost loved ones, for example?
It's an interesting thing, actually. I hadn't really thought about it from that angle. So I would just normally think about people that have been lost through war or that kind of sacrifice. But yeah, it's an interesting point that, it may be that some people use it as an opportunity to just reflect on anyone who they've lost. I never really thought about that angle, actually, but it'd be interesting to know if anyone else does who's watching.
Nicola wrote in the comments, remembering helps us to be able to do the same for others. And I think that's actually quite an interesting point, that actually remembering the sacrifice of others, and that we're here because of, really choices of other people made on our behalf we've never met, I think is actually very humbling. Very, very humbling. I was listening to Ant Middleton last night. Zach and I went to watch Ant Middleton, who's a TV personality here in the UK.
I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah. Slightly controversial TV personality here in the UK. But we went and listened to him, and I thought what he said was fascinating. I thought what was interesting. Basic sort of surface level psychology. Really enjoyed it. And it was just interesting, some of the principles he came up with. And I think actually a chunk of those do come from scripture. That's just, again, you can see that. But one of the things he talked about last night was entitlement, and how people these days are walking around with entitlement. And I can't repeat to you what he said about entitlement, because this is a church service, and it is a family church service, and I don't want to get flagged by Google for language which should be deemed as inappropriate. Anyway, basically he said, and I'm sure you can imagine what he said, that you're entitled to absolutely nothing. And I think that's a really interesting idea, because when I remember the sacrifice of others, and I'm humbled by that. Do you know what I mean? And there is this entitlement, like I've been born and I'm God's gift to the earth. And it's like, no, hang on a minute. there's the flip side of this. Do you know what I mean? And I think it was a really interesting point he pulled out.
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge, isn't it? Because you think about people who've given everything for others, and then the kind of flip side of that, when you reflect on it, is, well, what are you going to do then for others? Like those who've been given much then should also give much. That isn't always our response to like being given much, but it should be. And particularly as those of us who are Christians, that's the idea of a faith, isn't it? That actually Jesus has given you everything, and actually what are you going to do with your life now that's going to be of value and really count and make the world better. And I think, it's something that I don't think, people necessarily all feel as much anymore. I don't know. Are we quite an individualist society now where we think about self a lot? I feel like, some of our sense of kind of society as a whole seems to be breaking down, and that's quite interesting. But I think it's so important that we all see ourselves as part of a bigger society, because, we don't all live as islands, do we? We're all interconnected, as we've seen with COVID and other things in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Fascinating. Maybe we'll do a talk on what does the Bible say about individualism at some point. It doesn't like it. It's probably the answer. It's a short answer to that question. It's not a fan, if I'm honest. But I love what Nicola wrote. And actually, I do think about the sacrifice and service of others challenges me to go, how am I, like you said, how am I serving? How am I making the world a better place? And I like the story of Mary Magdalene, because Mary she just washed Jesus' feet with her hair and perfume, and somehow that has been remembered throughout all of time. So, it can be the simplest things, can't it? What we got here? Aluned Kettle. Have I pronounced that right?
Yeah.
Are you related?
That's my mother-in-law.
Ah, hello, mother-in-law.
We've just been talking about her late husband, so...
She's written in here, I think it's important that Remembrance Day is dedicated to remembering the many, mostly young men and women who have given the ultimate sacrifice in the various wars that have ensured our freedom. In fact, let me put this on screen. I'm reading this out here. There we go. You can all see it now. In view of what you were saying earlier, it would be a shame for it to be clouded by other personal loss. Maybe we should make more of All Saints' Day. That's very interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
Good comment there. You're going to have an interesting conversation with your mother-in-law about that, no doubt.
Yeah, we'll have to pick it up later.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. And I appreciate the comment. Sharon, I'm very humbled by people I hear about in the news who bravely try to stop terrorist attacks and so on by putting themselves in danger. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fascinating. Yeah, enjoying the conversation in the comments. Sorry I'm not keeping up with everything that's going on. It's quite tricky to read that and to have a conversation on screen. But somehow we manage it. I don't quite know. But no, it's fascinating, and I think your mum's she's put here, we always do, with a smiley face, which is great. So I thought it was a very interesting comment that actually today is Remembrance Sunday, and it is to remember those who have fallen, who have given their lives as a sacrifice. And lots of young men and women who were sent terrified to the front lines and have been not just in years gone by, but are still presently being sent over. Our thoughts, our prayers, and our thanks and our gratitude are with you. And if you know someone who's in the military, why not just send them a text or just say thanks? One of the things that I always do actually whenever I meet someone from the military is just first thing. Same with the NHS. First thing to say thanks for your service. Really appreciate your service. It's a beautiful thing to do. So yes. Oh, apparently many thanks to Merseyside Police for attending the exploding car at the Women's Hospital today.
I heard about that earlier today. Only because I work in comms in the NHS, it came up on my phone.
Oh,
but
wow.
Yeah, sounds quite horrific.
I genuinely don't know anything about that. I've not seen the news. So, wow. I don't know what to say about that. Hope, thoughts and prayers with everybody. And that's only that's when my kids were born. So that's a little bit scary.
Mine.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, that's the end of this week's live stream. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I feel like we're just starting to get in the conversation. Next week, as we said earlier on, we are carrying on the conversation. The Right Reverend John Harding is with us next week, talking about what does the Bible say about marriage and relationships, which I am very much looking forward to getting into. So John's going to be with us next week. After that, we've got James and Hannah Sloan doing a double act on what does the Bible say about money and wealth, which is going to be good. And then it's December and the Christmas music will start. So just to let you know what's coming up. But again, I think what we're going to do is we're going to close out the live stream now with another song. When that song finishes, the live stream will end automatically. So that's in effect it from myself and Anna. Thank you so much for joining us. And as we said, today is a day of remembering. And we remember those who have, like I say, paid the ultimate sacrifice. And if you are a member of our armed services, thank you so much for your service. So Anna, anything else from you?
No, just thank you for being here today. And if you've got anything else to say on a subject, we'll obviously hang around afterwards. So keep the comments coming, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Indeed we shall. Bless you. Have a great week, and we will see you next
Take
week.
care.
Bye for now.
We have come to Mount Zion, city of the living God. Heavenly Jerusalem, by his blood we have come. We have come to Mount Zion, city of the living God. Heavenly Jerusalem, by his blood we have come. By his blood we have come. Thousands of angels dance around his throne. Thousands more sing out new songs. Elders throw their crowns down as all of heaven sings out. Worthy